Welcome, everybody. Welcome, January 1st. Well, you know what? This is a good day to get myself back on track. I watched what I eat today. I put myself on the scale. I got my blood pressure. Today, my weight was up to 170 pounds. My blood pressure was actually quite low at 107 over 65 with a pulse of 99. That was after a nice, warm, relaxing shower after a bike ride. And today is that Jerry and his team has put together a wonderful performance and webinar. It's basically exercise and motivation. And to me, one of my keys to my success is activity. And I hope it becomes yours as well. And Jerry will point out how few people are exercising. So, how do we make this pillar? Because today I was talking to a patient who just had an angiogram on the 31st, and basically he was on 2 cholesterol pills, Crestor, ezetimibe. He was taking his aspirin and beta blockers. Blood pressure 130 to 140 range. The BMI around 28, 29, and basically he was surprised to see all his major vessels are blocked, and he's going to need to go for a bypass operation. So let's see how we can keep all on track. Well, Stuart, how was your Christmas and New Year's?
My Christmas was good. I'm usually out east in Newfoundland, so it was my first Christmas ever in Ontario. I didn't really do too much. I just spent time at home. We watched a movie, and maybe had 1 or 2 more cookies than I probably should have. That's how I spent my time.
Yeah, I've had too much to eat, and I'm now I'm getting back to being serious again. I thought I was serious, but not serious enough. But we'll get back on track. That's okay. We have ups and downs and all this. The Toronto Raptors started off 0-3. They're now 1-3, and they got themselves back on track. And we'll have our ups and downs. How you doing there, Jerry?
I'm doing good.
And thank you so much for putting this together. And let's move forward there. So, Stuart, I'll let you just take it off for right now and introduce what the beginnings here.
Fantastic. So thank you, Dr. Curnew. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Today's discussion is going to be very much an enjoyable one. The idea of today's webinar is not to overwhelm you with too much scientific information. We are going to discuss the benefits of exercise, but more importantly, we really want to focus on the motivational aspect of exercise. So what we've done is we are going to be sharing some personal stories. We'll share some resolutions that a few of us have for New Year's. And we're also going to be speaking with 2 patients and fellow MDs, 2 patients of Dr. Curnew's, who are going to talk about their experiences with exercise and how to stay motivated, especially now when we're in the middle of a pandemic and things can be a little bit stressful at times. So that is going to be the objective of today's webinar. And as I always do, I'll briefly explain how to use the webinar features. So if you are joining us on WebEx, you'll see that there is a microphone option. If you ever want to unmute your mic and ask any questions throughout the webinar, all you have to do is click the button and you can chime right in. We like to keep these things very informal and discussion based, so if at any point you do have a question, please don't hesitate to ask, and we'll be happy to answer them at any time. We also love to see you, so if you are comfortable turning on your videos, all you have to do is click that camera button. Right now it would probably be red if your camera is off, and once you click it, it'll turn black and we'll be able to see you. And that's always nice to be able to put a face to all the names that we see on the screen. Those who are joining us on YouTube, we won't be able to see you, but you can certainly ask any questions you have just by using the chat function. I'll be monitoring it throughout the presentation, so if you have any questions at any point, please don't hesitate to ask, and I'll be able to address them at a good time. Now, if you are joining us on YouTube, it means you have found our YouTube page. We post weekly videos on Wednesdays and Fridays. Our Wednesday videos are a little bit shorter than the ones we do on Fridays, but we talk about a range of topics from managing blood pressure to healthy eating, mindfulness, and we're going to be doing a lot more videos on exercise now as well. So all you have to do is go on YouTube and type in Greg Curnew, and you'll be able to find our YouTube page, and you'll be able to find a range of videos that might interest you. You can also see right here, a lot of our videos are organized into playlists. So a lot of our videos are categorized into different sections. As you can see, Hypertension Club, we have Cooking Club, Technology Club. Breathing Club, and a number of others as well. Now these are some pictures from Dr. Curnew, and I'll let him explain some of the adventures he's been on recently.
Well, as you know, is that COVID has taught me to learn how to be more active. And if you actually take a survey and you ask people, is that what is the number one way of helping depression and anxiety? It's being outside. So figure ways to be outside. So there you can see myself out on my bike this fall, and then some people as well. This is actually Jenna walking to work this morning. Jenna is my lovely daughter. She's out in BC right now, and I was hoping to visit her this Christmas, but that didn't take place. She's working at Big White, and here she is at the crack of dawn walking to work. So she has a 25-minute walk to work and a 25-minute walk on the way home, and it's pretty cold most of the time there, and I'm here in my warm house, and she's there all dressed up today, and I'm really proud of her. Jen, I love you a lot, and we look forward to seeing you in the future, and thank you for being healthy. So this is just outdoor activity, and if you can find a way to be outdoors and be safe, please keep doing that within your bubble. Next slide, please.
A little bit of technical glitch. Oops. There we go.
And here's today. So I think most of us during this colder weather, and one of the things is colder weather brings us more indoors. And here's my lovely wife Carrie. She's on a Zoom exercise yoga class. You can see the two dogs there. I tired them out, took them out for a nice long walk yesterday, and here I am after my bike ride. And I put this, went to the drawer today after my shower, and I found this CN Tower climb. So here's my time, 18 minutes and 52 seconds. I can't remember what year this was, and everybody who joined us got to sign on this, and everybody wants to go faster than me. I'm sure you can all go faster than me, but I look forward to setting myself a challenge. And one of my challenges is I want to climb the CN Tower, that's 1,776 steps, in less than 18 minutes. I haven't made that goal yet, but that's one of my goals that I think I can achieve. And so this Monday morning, Adam, myself, before we start clinic on January the 4th, we're going to be there at 6 o'clock in the morning. So anybody wants to come to the Shadok stairs, and we'll keep our distances. But I need as much support and help to get to my goals and to your goals as well. So one of the challenges is how to get 1 million steps, how to keep yourself active, especially during the colder weather. All things well, I'll probably be on my bike tomorrow, but maybe not. We'll see. Right now it's snowing over here. We're expecting some freezing rains. I'm not sure what will transpire. So think about what you can do to keep yourself active. Next slide, please.
So next, do you want to take it away, Doctor?
Sure. So my son Josh and April and his girlfriend are part of Rescue Dogs. This is actually Chubbs. So why don't we just play this video about Chubbs over here, and really remarkable that this dog is being over here.
Come on, buddy. Good boy.
So this is Chubbs. Chubbs is a wonderful dog up in Thunder Bay, and my son Josh and his girlfriend April living in Thunder Bay. So I'm sorry we can't be with you, but basically they're part of an organization that rescues dogs. So Chubb was rescued, was flown into Thunder Bay. He unfortunately got his foot axed, and they tried to save the foot but required amputation. So if Chubbs can be happy and loves being outdoors and can walk on 3 legs, we can actually learn to be more active as well. So I thank Josh and April for looking after him, and for the wonderful contribution. I thank Chubbs for reminding me how important activity is. So if Chubbs can do it, so can you and I. Next slide.
And this was a video that we recently posted on Wednesday. So in this video, what we really focused on was making healthier New Year's resolutions. I think the great thing about this video is that it's very much oriented towards health and exercise, but not so much exercise actually, but more in terms of dieting and eating right. So you have the eating right component, which you can always check out at a later time. And today our discussion is very much oriented on exercise. So both of these components, you can't really have one without the other. They're both really important. And with 2021 now starting, and 2020 around in the past, it's really nice to be able to think of some goals and continue to work towards them. So this was a fantastic video where we discussed different resolution ideas that you can consider, and we also give you some strategies for how to stay on track with these goals that you're making. So if at any point you're interested in checking that video out, it's on our YouTube page.
So I already actually checked out that video, and I use that to help myself. Is that one of the things that Zoe and her team talked about is nighttime eating, and that's my biggest Achilles heel right now. And I want to get my weight to 165 pounds. I want to maintain myself at a body mass index between 20 and 25. So right now I'm at 170 pounds. I'm a body mass index of 24. I want to get back down to 165 pounds, and to do that, I have to think about what I'm going to do about nighttime eating. So what Zoe and their team pointed out on that video is that I already brush my teeth after dinner tonight. I'm always drinking 2 glasses of water with every meal, and our older son Jordan, he is basically going to just have water, ice water afterwards. I find that there's different ways of eating. You can decide if you only eat 6 small meals a day or intermittent fasting. I find no matter what I do, I want to be a nighttime eater, and that's where most of my calories are. So I'm going to try to fast as much during the day, eat less, and I'm going to basically tonight is I brush my teeth, so I'm going to brush them again later. I didn't have any dessert tonight. I'm going to see if I can avoid not eating after 8 o'clock. And my goal is basically lots of water, lots of tea, and coffee. And if all else fails, I'm going to have just basically have our air popper, and that's what I'm going to try to do. Will I be successful? I'm not sure, but those are what Zoya has brought to on that video that we just shot before. So that's what I'm going to try to do, Zoya. So I'm going to give it a good shot, and tomorrow, Chad and I are going for a walk. Hopefully my wife will come join us as well. I'll be up first thing in the morning, and we'll move forward from that. So that's one of my resolutions, and one of my goals is to get myself back to 165 and maintain that. I thank the whole team for doing that, and so what are your achievable goals? What are your SMART goals? So that's something that we're going to look at. One of the things I do notice is that during this holiday season, because we didn't go visit Jenna out in BC, is that I've been watching CSI in the morning time, and they had this right now till January. The 3rd is that they have continuous CSI, and it's an old show I used to love, but I got to turn off the TV and get back to that. So today I just watched 2 episodes, and I turned it off, and I've read a lot. Jordan gave me a book on Christmas about weight reduction, which is quite interesting. And the American Heart Association meeting, I have access to this till January 4th, so I'm just going through a few hundred hours of videos on that, so I'm really looking forward to that. And tomorrow we're going to be calling some patients, going to do some exercise, and some walks, and healthy eating. So I can do it, you can do it. What are you going to do?
Great. Thank you, Doctor. So with this conversation of resolutions, we'd love to hear yours as well. So what we've done is we've created a Google form, and you can see these are the questions we're asking you, just to share your first and last name, what your well-being goal is, and it could be related to a number of different things. And then you can share with us specifically what that goal is, and whether you'd actually like some assistance from us. And if you are, then we'll be able to be in contact with you so that we can really help you achieve this goal of yours. So it could be a number of different things. Dr. Curnew talked about, wanting to be healthier and get to his goal weight. Yours can be something similar. It could be something completely different. I want to get more sleep. I'm really stressed and I want to learn better ways to cope with it. You know yourself better than anyone else. So I think the main thing here is we'd like to hear what your goal is and whether you'd like some support from us, because it's always easier as a team. You don't have to do this alone. So if you are interested, you're more than welcome to fill out the Google form. It's in the description of this video. And when we say the description of this video, I pointed a little arrow here to show you exactly what we mean. Right underneath the video, you'll be able to see a little box where we share some extra information. And there, all you have to do is click the link and you'll be able to fill out the form. The cool thing about this is we are going to be rewarding one lucky entry with a free 30 Days to a Healthier You. So 30 Days to a Healthier You is a fantastic book that Dr. Curnew and his team of volunteers throughout the years have worked on. It's 20 years in the making, and it contains a number of fantastic recipes, strategies, and overall just ways to be healthier and ways to start doing that today. Dr. Curnew gifted me this book for Christmas, and I gave it to my mother for a Christmas gift, and she's already been reading it and really enjoying it. So it's a great gift for yourself or for others. So we'd love to hear your goals, and one lucky entry will get the chance to win a free 30 Days to a Healthier You. And the next thing that we really love to talk about is our new Motivation and Exercise Club. So if you have been around the clinic, you're familiar with the many focus groups that we have. We currently have one for Weight Loss Club, we have one for smoking cessation, and now we really want to focus on motivation and exercise. So what we want to do is create a weekly platform where individuals like yourself, if you're interested, can join on these Zoom calls, and we're going to be having either group sessions or individual check-ins with you each week. What we hope to do here is to share tips and strategies for how to stay motivated, how to exercise and reach your goal weight. And another cool thing is we're hoping to do group exercise sessions over these Zoom calls as well. So lots of exciting things to look forward to. If you are interested, all you have to do is, again, fill out the Google form in the description of this video, where you share just your first and last name, and whether you'd like to join the club as individual or if you'd like to do it as a group. Does anyone like to add anything to that, Dr. Curnew?
I think this is wonderful. I think I'm going to be the first one to sign up. I want to thank Devanshi. She started a really successful program for weight management. People have lost 25 pounds since we started. Her and her team calls people. We've also enrolled people into something called the BRAVE trial. It is a randomized trial that's looking at the best strategy for weight reduction. So it includes bariatric surgery for those who have a body mass index over 35 and have heart disease, or best medical therapy. Best medical therapy is group support on a weekly basis and working together about this. And so we're going to actually have a webinar beginning of February looking at whether or not bariatric surgery is for you or versus best medical therapy. Best medical therapy for weight reduction is basically working with your team on a weekly basis, and that's something I really look forward to. On Tuesdays, those who want to join can join us. I think putting things on paper or committing to yourself increases chance of being successful, and surrounding yourself with the people that are working with this too is also very important as well. So I'm encouraging everybody to write down what they want to do for activity. It's one of the pillars of health. It's key to my success. My dad had his bypass at 50. He has diabetes, unfortunately passed away for Alzheimer's disease. So by being active and by keeping my weight down, so far I've prevented diabetes from affecting me. I prevented heart disease from affecting me, and I know I can live longer by activity. So that's a pillar that's important to myself. I hope it becomes a pillar to yourself, because all goes well, I want to retire on my 100th birthday and have a big party for everybody. So that's my one of my visions right now. I have another 39 years left to go. So that's my goal right now. Will I make it or not? I don't know, but I'm going to certainly go down fighting and and I think working together with everybody in this team has made that possible. So I have a big team, and I want our team to be part of your team. So write it down, and let's move forward.
Great. At this time, I'm going to pass it over to Jerry. Jerry is going to go through everything we want to discuss today, and we'll then conclude the talk with Dr. Phil and Dr. Joanna, who will be sharing their experiences on exercise.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Curnew and Stuart, for the introduction. We're going to talk a little bit about the table of contents today and what we are going to talk about. So one of the things we're going to talk about today is exercising during a pandemic and how exercise can help with decreasing the risk for COVID-19, decreasing the effects of COVID-19 to your body, and also staying safe. As well, we're going to talk about some exercise guidelines, so talking about what Canada and the rest of the world recommend for exercise in a week and what that looks like for the regular person. I'm going to talk about METs and how to use that to kind of measure your exercise and quantify your exercise. And as well, I'm going to give some tips to stay motivated. Motivation, Aizen's going to do a very good job about using her tips to tell you how to stay motivated with exercise. And as well, I'm going to touch a little bit on exercise testing and doing that as a regular thing to keep track of your progress. As Stuart said before, we're going to have a lovely talk with Dr. Phil and Dr. Joanna. I'm going to end the night with some resources to help you further exercise. Next slide, please.
So thanks so much, Jerry, for that introduction. So we're first going to start off a little bit and touch on why exercising is important during a pandemic. So the stress and anxiety from being isolated and being thrown out of your normal way of life is really real. We know that it can be hard to get up and exercise when you're already trying to adapt to a very uncomfortable situation, a global pandemic. It seems like the last thing that one might want to do. You already have emotional stress, so why on earth would we be trying to tell you to put your body through physical stress? But the reason is that exercising in this time will help you in so many ways. Your body responds to the stress and anxiety that you might be feeling at this time. Glucocorticoids, such as cortisol, are released, and these are also known as the stress hormones. And when we are stressed, these are raised. When we are stressed, also what happens is that the ability of our T cells to multiply is reduced. We want these cells to multiply to fight off infectious agents. We also want other immune cells, such as effector lymphocytes, to recognize and kill cells in our body that have become cancerous or that have been infected with viruses. It's so incredibly important that our immune cells maintain their ability to patrol vulnerable areas in our body, such as our respiratory tract. And this will help us protect us from viruses and other pathogens. When we keep these cells happy, we also speed up that healing process. Sorry, Dr. Curnew, did you want to say something?
Well, is that so COVID just is one of our challenges. There are so many challenges out there. So what COVID has taught me is that we've been fighting out infections for a long time. In fact, influenza, which is a sister of COVID, has been around for a long time and it unfortunately kills. So we have the common cold, which is another coronavirus that doesn't kill. And what I've learned is that just having influenza, so everybody should get their vaccinations up to date, including influenza. And by vaccinating against influenza, you might be up some protection about COVID. You're also protecting against yourself about heart disease. By exercising, you lower your risk of having just lung infections in general, and your sense of well-being. So you mentioned T cells are important, and T cells are also involved in atherosclerosis. So this is just a wake-up call that we learned so much, and you need to learn more how to protect yourself. And unfortunately, too many people have not used activity as an antidepressant, as a way of making yourself live longer, keeping yourself out of the nursing home, and also just keeping yourself healthier. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem. So as you already touched upon, there's a relationship, as we all know, between cardiorespiratory fitness and a risk of cardiovascular disease. The lower your cardiorespiratory fitness level is, the higher your risk of cardiovascular disease. So it's really important to keep yourself active. However, like Dr. Curnew touched upon, cardiorespiratory fitness protects us from all types of infections. When you exercise, particularly when you do any form of whole body cardiorespiratory exercise, your body instantaneously mobilizes billions of immune cells, especially the cell types that are capable of carrying out functions that recognize and kill off virus-infected cells. So when you exercise, you have a continuous circulation of these cells, which makes us more resistant to infections and better equipped to handle any infectious agent that snuck past our initial defense system. Also, when we age, there's chronic inflammation. This inflammation is caused by certain molecules, which are called cytokines. They can be kind of classified as good and bad cytokines. Good cytokines are anti-inflammatory, and they can stimulate the immune system to fight off a foreign pathogen or attack tumors. Bad cytokines can overstimulate the onset of inflammation in your body, and this can lead to inflammatory diseases such as Crohn's disease or certain cases of rheumatoid arthritis. So where does exercise come into play? Exercise can lower pro-inflammatory cytokines, and it can increase anti-inflammatory cytokines. And this effect increases the older that you get. This means that when you get older, exercise becomes increasingly more important. Finally, exercise also improves our oxygen delivery and oxygen intake, as well as maximizing your efficiency of oxygen consumption. This is especially important in a time of respiratory disturbance that may arise with the onset of COVID-19. So overall, it's really important to protect yourself during this pandemic with exercise. Next slide.
Alright, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about the general recommendations for exercise. So many countries, they recommend 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous intensity aerobic exercise per week. And we'll talk a little bit more about what moderate to vigorous means for everybody. An aerobic exercise is just something that gets the blood pumping. So things like running, walking, jogging, and swimming. There was a study that found that by reaching 150 minutes of exercise per week, there is a 30 to 40% decrease in cardiovascular events, so things like heart attacks, strokes, etc. And in a poll by Statistics Canada, they found that only 16% of Canadian adults actually meet these exercise guidelines. So a whopping 84% of Canadian adults are not meeting 150 minutes of exercise per week. However, there is a silver lining to this. In the same poll, they found that over 76% of Canadians actually say they enjoy exercise. So the main takeaway here is that not exercising is a societal issue, so you're definitely not alone. And hopefully this presentation today will give you a little bit tips and get you a little bit more motivated to get up and move. Next slide, please.
So, Jerry, go back that one slide there. 16% of Canadians are exercising. That's enough that meets the recommendation. That's too low. And basically, is the person I was talking to today was surprised that his arteries are all clogged up. He's going to need a bypass, but he's part of the majority. People don't use activities part of their defense mechanism against longevity, heart disease, stroke, depression, etc. So. And right now he can't exercise too much because all his arteries are blocked, but we're going to get him restarted after his bypass in January. We'll get a new beginning. Bypass operations are not a long-term solution. It's a temporizing solution. We're going to hear from Joanne and Philip later, who incorporate activity into their lives so they're living longer and healthier.
All right, thank you, Dr. Curnew, for that. And now I'm going to talk a little bit more about FIT principles. So in the field of exercise science, we use FIT principles to kind of quantify exercise. So it stands for frequency, intensity, time, and type. So frequency is how many times you exercise. So in the case of the guidelines, it might be 5 days a week. For intensity, how hard are you working? So moderate, vigorous exercise. For time, it's how long for each single exercise bout. So if you want to meet the guidelines, if you're doing 5 days a week, you want to do 30 minutes every day. And the type, what kind of exercise are you doing? So things like aerobic exercise, and as well, there's also growing evidence suggesting the use of resistance exercise as well, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Dia's going to talk a lot about the resistance bands and how we can use that with exercise. So the general recommendation right now is 150 minutes of aerobic exercise, and as well, there's growing evidence about 2 days of resistance exercise for each major muscle group. So your legs, your chest, your arms, and your back. Next slide, please. Alright, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about how these guidelines look. So what does moderate to vigorous actually mean? So as a rule of thumb, it's any activity that makes you sweat. So it could be walking, running, doing housework, usually a brisk walk, about 3 to 4 miles per hour can do the trick. As well, yard work and household tasks, they can not only make the house look great, but also get you up and moving and get you exercising. And just recommendation today is that any movement is good to start. You don't have to go out there and run a full marathon in your first month of exercising. Just small movements here and there to build up to that 30 minutes a day, 150 minutes per week. Just building up to that is very good. Next slide, please. So a way we can evaluate exercise is using heart rate. So one of the things we use is heart rate max. So how you get heart rate max is you take the number 220 and take away your age. So example, for a 70-year-old, their heart rate max would be 150 beats per minute. So 220 minus 70. And as a tip, if you're taking your heart rate, let's say after a walk, you're curious about how high your heart rate got, you can take your pulse for 10 seconds. So you can take it here at your wrist, on your thumb side, as well you can take it underneath your neck. So take it for 10 seconds and multiply that number by 6 and you get it in beats per minute. Next slide. And just to touch upon moderate and vigorous intensity and what those targets are, moderate intensity exercise is typically 50 to 70% of your heart rate max. So for a 70-year-old person, the target would be 75 to 105 beats per minute. Typically, you want to get more towards the 100 beats per minute side, as some people's resting heart rates can reach up to 70 to 80 beats per minute. And for vigorous intensity exercise, we're talking 70 to 85% of your heart rate max. So for a 70-year-old, the target would be 105 to about 130 beats per minute. And these are just some general guidelines. Heart rate max can sometimes be a funny number. Sometimes it's not too accurate, but just getting to that 100 beats per minute, 130 beats per minute, I would say is a very good target for you to reach. Next slide. And now I'm just going to talk about METs. So METs is probably something you've seen if you've done your stress test in clinic. It's typically in the results section. So a MET is a metabolic equivalent, with one MET equals being you're resting. So when you're sitting down, doing nothing, or maybe watching TV, and it's the amount of energy that your body is kind of expending at rest. And to meet the exercise guidelines, you generally want to hit about 3 to 6 METs in your exercise. Next slide. So these two tables just show the common activities and their MET values. So if you can see on the left table over there, walking 3 miles per hour, that gets you 3.5 METs, so within that 3 to 6 threshold. There's things like gardening, cycling, walking, swimming. About at the graph, the chart to the right over there with the MET values and the animations, it gives you 1 to 10 for your METs, and this is adapted to more for older individuals. The table to the left is more for the general adult. So the one on the right is adapted more for older individuals. You can see walking gets you between 3 to 4 METs, household tasks 4 to 5 METs, going up the stairs 6 METs, running 7, and cycling 8. These are just some easy ways to kind of quantify the things you're doing right now and their MET values. Next slide.
So Jerry, I was eating a lot today, so I guess I was on 1 to 2 METs there. But then, I went for a walk with the dog today, but I wasn't very vigorous. I was just sort of putzing around at a slow part. Then I went for a bike ride for about an hour and a half or so in the cold weather. The bike ride was sometimes up and down hills and stuff. So how many METs could that be there? How would you figure that out, Jerry? So I just said I'd like to just a leisurely walk with the dog. How many METs would that be?
I would say if it's a leisurely walk, you're not going too fast, it's kind of on the slower side, probably be around 2 to 3 METs. You can see they're walking 2 miles per hour. That's typically about a slow kind of walk. And it gives you about 2.5 METs. So it'll be different for each individual, but I would say around the low 2s to maybe 2.5. If you're cycling, you can get for an adult, you can get up to, it says about 7 over here. About 4.5, and to 5. Yeah, and for the older individual, it can get up to 8 a base if you're cycling very vigorously. So I would say if you're doing some cycling, you can probably reach that high, moderate to low vigorous kind of threshold, for sure.
So one of the things I still like to do, which is painful, I like to do some hills. So I don't. So I always try to add that, especially this time of the year, because I don't go out for as long. So I want to keep myself warm. So one of the things I'm going to start to do is get back to a little bit of jogging just wintertime, because I find that I'm not outside as much as I like to. So I think I'm going to increase my intensity. And I know we hear about some indoor activity too as well, but I want to be outside for as much as I possibly can. I live in the country, so I can be. In fact, there was nobody cycling today, just me out there. When one farmer was laughing at me, he said, "Why, it's kind of cold out there. Why are you cycling?" I said, "I just have to go." And so you have to find what works for yourself. And then I love to talk. I was talking to Joanne and Philip before. I was talking to Devonshula, cycling today. So I get to talk to people, and I really enjoy that. It's part of my social life too as well. So I really great pleasure being out on my bike. I'm cold, but I have some winter gear. So you find out what works for yourself there, and please do something. And I feel so much better. I haven't been doing as well as I did yesterday. I went for a walk with one of my squash buddies. We went up. We got lost in the woods, so we were out there a little bit longer than we wanted to be, and that was good too as well. So. Please find the way to make this so much better. My mood, is so much better. My danger sometimes is that in the morning time I just get up, go to the computer, start reading. But if I was really smart, I should just go outside first and take the dog for a walk. So I'm going to, and I thank Adam and others to come. We're going to do some steps at stroke and things of that nature as well. So find a way to. Either walk with your spouse, walk the dog, walk a friend, keep your distance, but please add this. It's so valuable.
All right, so just to continue on to Dr. Curnew's point over there, I'm going to talk a little bit about METs and risk factors. So to get the METs to sustain independent living, you need about 4 METs. And you can get these values using a stress test, and that's something you can request for in clinic as well. So to sustain independent living, you need about 4 METs. And about 50% of seniors actually lose the ability to function independently after being hospitalized for an illness. So that's why exercise is so very important. If you can increase your fitness, you get a higher baseline METs. When you get hospitalized for something something you don't anticipate, you're still able to leave and recover and still be able to function independently. And as well, if you have a baseline of 10 METs, you actually have a very low risk of death from cardiovascular disease. And 10 METs is something that can be very easily attainable even for older individuals. If you do regular exercise, 10 METs is a very attainable number. And a 1 MET increase is associated with about a 20 or over 20% reduction in overall mortality. So getting as fit as you can is very important. Next slide.
So this is actually very important, is that this is a difference whether or not you will be able to live independently or not. If you can't do 5 METs, you say 4, I say 5. If you can't do 5 METs of activity, you can't do your shopping. You can't live on your own. You can't clean your home. And if you get sick, you lose 2 to 3 METs of fitness very quickly. So you need to be around 7, 9 METs just to so when you get sick, that when you lose your reserve, you can actually go home. And that's important. So this magic number of 10 to 12 METs is something that we could think about. How do we get to that level? Because boy, oh boy, is that I want to be as independent for as long as I can, and activity provides that almost more than anything else I know of. Thank you for sharing that. So we talked about the pillars of health here. Let's go. So to me is that that physical activity right in the middle is that something that only 16% of Canadians are doing right now, but that's a huge pillar. So you got to do something to increase your self-centeredness. So I'll just be quiet for a little bit.
We did have a good question, actually, and I just wanted to address it before we move on. One individual was just asking, with the exception of a stress test, is there any other way to calculate your METs?
Absolutely. So the stress test is, the most scientific way, but just basically go out for a brisk walk, and if you can do a brisk walk for a half an hour or so, that means you're quite fit. You can actually probably live independently. Now then, there's jogging, there's bike riding, etc. So we'll put up a little bit of table there right now. But basically, if you can go outside, walk briskly, and not feel too short of breath for a half an hour, that means you're pretty well in good shape. The stress test just tells you if your heart's getting good blood flow during that. So to me is that for those who've had a stress test, one of the things you should walk away is how many METs can you do. Lance Armstrong can do about 27 METs. Last time I did mine was around 17 METs. I'm sure I've lost quite a bit right now, but I'm over that magic 12 to 15 METs. So you need to really get a goal for yourself of being able to basically do a light jog, depending on who you are, depending on obviously your arthritis, etc. So please think about getting more fit, and you can get more fit. For every 1 MET increase in fitness, mortality of heart disease, Jerry's saying by 20%, some say by 10%. So you can easily increase your fitness 2 to 4 METs very easily and make yourself live longer and get that reserve there. So plea is that the best benefit of exercise is going from nothing to something. So if it's only 2 minutes, that's fine, 5 times a day, but get that magic number up there to 30 to 60 minutes most days for us, and it's a goal. And for some of us, it's going to take a lot longer. For me, I'm still, people are trying to catch me on the CN Tower climb. I want to keep myself ahead to keep these young people in line over here. Is that every year I'm losing a little bit, but I'm still fighting, and my poor brother has diabetic neuropathy. He's limiting his diabetes. I don't have diabetes. My dad had his bypass at 50. I'm 60. I haven't had a bypass, and so I'm still ticking away. But I'm being smart about it, and you can too as well.
Alright, so now we're going to talk about the pillars of health. So today we're obviously going to focus on physical activity, so the pillar in the middle over there. But I just want to touch base upon some of the other pillars to hold up the foundation for health. So things like weight. This includes having a scale. So having a scale at home and measuring your weight and keeping track of that is very important. Weight reduction is also very important. And as well, measuring blood pressure is also very important. So making sure you have a blood pressure machine at home. Physical activity, as we're going to talk about today, is very important, and only 16% of Canadians actually meet the guidelines, so there's something we can all work together on. Stress and mental well-being. A lot of illnesses can be related to stress, so they're looking after your mental health is very important. Diet and nutrition, to make sure you're putting in the best food and best fuel for your body, as well keeping that weight down as well. It's very important. And managing risky behaviors, risky in terms of risky to your body, so things like smoking, binge drinking, and others. Next slide.
This is actually, before you move that slide, it's really important that people think about weighing themselves. Now you can decide how often you want to weigh yourself. I weigh myself most days. The best body mass index is between 20 and 25, and to me that's a separate pillar. Very few of us, are at that level at this point in time. Your level of fitness, how fit you are, and doing something. Diet and nutrition, these are the foundations of good health. And to me, it's a tragedy right now if you don't have your own blood pressure machine, you don't have your own scale. That's something you should ask Santa Claus to get for you, or you should get for yourself at some point in time if you can. make that part of your repertoire. You don't want to do the blood pressure machine at Shoppers Drug Mart. You want the blood pressure machine at your own home at this point in time. So these are things to think about. They're all interconnected. By being physically fit, you can actually prevent yourself from gaining weight. Being on a proper diet, as we talk about, is that few Canadians are on a proper diet. It's just avoiding processed foods, and that all makes your stress and well-being. It's sad right now that alcohol consumption has gone up, and that people are struggling with that. And I understand the challenges right now, but to me, activity is so crucial to this. So my plea to people is to just start somewhere. It doesn't have to be very much, and work yourself up. And don't get on yourself when you have a bad day. I had a few bad days. I gained 5 pounds. I'm gonna get back on track. So can you, and we can help you too if that's what you want to do. There's nothing good about smoking or vaping, but I know it's a hard problem for a lot of us. So let's just go down fighting how to get more important. So know your blood sugar, know your cholesterol, and know your results so you can be as healthy as you possibly can, because we can make a big difference.
All right, so as we said, staying motivated for exercise can be very difficult, especially in a time like this where we're all kind of stuck at home. It's cold outside, you don't really want to go out in the snow and the rain to exercise. So some ways to stay motivated we have up on the slide here. So the top one that I find helps me a lot is to find activities that you enjoy doing. Not everyone's going to enjoy the same types of exercises, and exploring the different options that are available to you will help you really find what you like to do. If you like to do something, you're more likely to actually go out and do it. So, like Jerry said, any activity is good activity. If you want to go walk your dog, if you want to go biking, if you want to garden, if you want to shovel snow, all of that is going to get your heart rate up, and it's going to help you stay physically active. So additionally, setting SMART goals is really great for helping to keep you working towards something. So SMART basically is just a set of criteria that helps you to set a goal that is achievable, is specific, and all this sort of stuff. So S in SMART stands for specific. You want to set goals that are related to one single thing or activity. M would be for measurable, so you should be able to measure your progress towards a goal. Make it something like, hey, I want to be able to walk 500 meters within X amount of time by the end of the month. A is for assignable, so you should be able to divide your goal into steps or actions that can help you reach your ultimate goal. Almost like a checklist for getting to that final goal. R is for realistic, so your goal should be something that you can feasibly achieve. If you aren't someone who really goes out and runs a lot, don't set your goal to be that you want to run a marathon within the first month of exercising. Make it something that you can achieve. If you achieve it, then you can set a new goal, and that's totally fine. If you set one that's really out of your reach, then you can get overwhelmed by this seemingly impossible task that you've set for yourself. So T would be for timely. So give yourself a specific timeline for which you want to achieve the goal within. And all of that will kind of help you create a goal that you can achieve, and you kind of plan out how you're going to achieve it. So by scheduling in your designated exercise time and planning on completing it as part of your day, you're going to remove some of the difficulty of starting exercise for that day. So by having down that you plan on completing it and making time for it, it becomes a lot easier to incorporate exercise into your everyday lifestyle. Support is also a huge part of continuing to exercise, and joining forces with friends and family is a really easy way to form a support system for yourself. Finding people that you can go to the gym with, go swimming with, or even just do little activities like going on walks together can really help you to stay active, and it also invites a social aspect into your exercise routine, which can help motivate you and also keep you entertained while you're doing exercise. A lot of times people can get bored if they go for a walk on the same route every day, so if you find people that you enjoy spending time with, it makes exercise a lot easier and almost passes the time faster. So also, ultimately, you want to be flexible about it. Keep an open mind towards new types of activities that you encounter, and don't beat yourself up if one day you don't perform as well as you normally do. Any type of activity is good activity, and as long as you're doing a little bit of movement, a little bit of outdoor exercise, indoor exercise, even cleaning the house, doing yard work, you're still staying active. And by staying active, you're keeping yourself on that track towards leading a healthier and more active lifestyle. Next slide.
Alright, so now I'm going to talk about going from sedentary to slightly active. So in our program in kinesiology, we learn a lot about the effects of going from no exercise to a little bit of exercise. It's everywhere in all of our classes. So today I'm just going to bring it in and kind of talk about what actually the benefits are for the regular person. So this study looked at replacing 30 minutes of sedentary time with exercise. So 30 minutes of time that people would regularly sit down and watch TV, or just sit down and do nothing, and replacing that with some sort of exercise. And they found that doing that can decrease waist circumference, decrease triglyceride levels in the blood, so the fats in your blood, can also improve blood sugar and diabetes. Next slide. And just to add on to that fact, you see a large relative increase in fitness. So a way that I like to think about it is that if you have a scale of 1 to 10 for fitness, and let's say you start off at a 2. If you do your exercise 150 minutes a week and you get up to a 4, that's you have doubled your fitness. That's an increase by 2, but you've essentially doubled your fitness. If you were slightly active before, and let's say your baseline was a 4, and you go to a 6, you still increase by 2, but it's not as a large relative increase. You didn't double your fitness. So by going from no exercise to some exercise, you're getting that large relative increase in something you can actually feel. It's not so subtle. As well, benefits to cardio and metabolic health, so things like type 2 diabetes, hypertension, so these things are probably heard a million times about exercise and the benefits. And as well, we're going to talk about some of these other benefits with Aislinn and Dia later on in the presentation. Next slide. And now I'm just going to talk about chronic exercise. So this is exercise that you do for weeks and months, and not just a single bout, a single or 2 days a week. So if you look at the chart we have on the right, and focus on the green section, so the one outlined with the red box, this looks at exercise performance. So to the left of that double dashed line in the middle, that is acute exercise. So this affects hours, days after a single bout or 2 bouts of exercise. And you see the exercise performance doesn't really increase too much. It's a very subtle increase, if at all. Now if you look at the chronic side, so to the right of that double dash line, you see that large increase in your exercise performance, that large increase in your fitness. And generally when you get that large increase, this is when you see benefits to your health. So we're talking about exercise over weeks and months. So the main takeaway from this slide is that improvements to exercise can be very subtle at the beginning, but the main point is to stick with it and do exercise over a long period of time, and you will see the benefits. Next slide.
There we go, double clicked the mute button. Sorry about that. So exercise will go way beyond weight loss. Obviously, everyone kind of thinks about weight loss as a big benefit for staying active and exercising a lot, but there's also a lot of preventative effects against chronic age-related diseases that exercise has. So things like osteoporosis, sarcopenia, and Alzheimer's can all be slightly prevented with increased exercise training, which is really, really awesome. And then exercise will also benefit your mental well-being. So as we touched on a little bit earlier, it can help with depressive symptoms, anxiety, also stress as well. Next slide, please.
By the way, what's sarcopenia?
Oh, we'll get to it. Don't you worry. So for osteoporosis is a progressive loss of bone mass. So that essentially means that your bone mineral density is decreasing, and this will increase your risk of fractures. So it's more common in postmenopausal women, but it can really happen to anybody. Resistance training and impact exercise is the best way to improve and increase bone mineral density, but this can often be complicated for older individuals by factors like joint pain. So that makes non-impact resistance training your best bet. So that's activities like swimming, using light weights, and doing body weight exercises. There's been a lot of research into exercise for osteoporosis, specifically some trials called the LIFT-MORE trials. And they are research studies that have been implementing resistance exercise protocols in men and women with osteoporosis. Overall, it's shown that exercise improves bone mineral density, does not cause more fractures, and helps improve symptoms such as pain in these populations. So, osteoporosis has been beneficial for prevention of development and also for treatment of osteoporosis. So you can use exercise in conjunction with medical therapy to help with a lot of diseases. Next slide, please. So sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is a progressive loss of muscle mass. So if we take a look at the photo that's on the slide here, you can see on the left we have a young, healthy thigh muscle. So all of that kind of lighter gray around that white bone that we see in the very middle, that lighter gray is all muscle mass. And around the outside, that darker gray, almost black portion is all subcutaneous fat. So if we move to the right of that picture, you can see a sarcopenic thigh muscle. So that overall muscle mass has really decreased. That area of light gray is much smaller. And you can also see that the area of dark gray has increased and also infiltrated and kind of woven its way into that muscle mass that we see. So this can have strong negative impacts on the functional ability of individuals that can then decrease their quality of life. So as Jerry was saying, you need to kind of have a baseline activity level of about 4 or 5 METs to be able to do your normal daily routine, to clean your house, to go get your groceries, and all of that sort of thing. So with this big loss of muscle mass, you're losing kind of some of that ability to keep your activity up, and that can really decrease people's quality of life. So physical activity levels are directly correlated with the risk for developing this disease. And resistance exercise is the best way to build muscle and prevent development of sarcopenia. Multiple studies have also shown that exercise improves muscle mass in individuals with sarcopenia, along with improving their functional ability, even in relatively short amounts of time. So some studies have shown big improvements in only about a month of resistance exercise training. So chronic exercise training before a sarcopenia diagnosis can drastically decrease your risk of developing this disease, and chronic exercise training after a diagnosis can really help improve the symptoms of this disease. Next slide, please.
So, Aislinn, I see a lot of people that have congestive heart failure, COPD, overweight, who don't exercise. And they have this sarcopenia. They're short of breath, they're weak, and they're tired. So my initial advice to people is get out there and start to walk. But you mentioned resistance exercise being very important as well. So if you're a person who's short of breath with congestive heart failure, or you're struggling with your tobacco and you're short of breath, can you give some specific things how they can do to get themselves less short of breath with activity? How would you go about doing that? How would you start?
Well, resistance exercise often doesn't have kind of as large of an aerobic portion as like running or brisk walks. So anything really, resistance exercise you could easily implement when you're normally sitting watching television or reading the newspaper, anything like that. As we'll talk about, resistance bands are really helpful, but even just using things like soup cans, bottles of water, anything like that, and doing some small movements with your arms. You can do bicep curls, you can do like lifts, really anything that's kind of moving your muscles and causing your muscles to contract, and that will really increase the muscle fiber size and help you to build that muscle back up. Okay, next slide, please. Perfect. So, exercise for Alzheimer's and dementia. Dementia is an umbrella term that really refers to a loss of memory, language, problem solving, and other thinking abilities. So, Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia, and it makes up about 60 to 80% of cases. So, exercise has been proven to decrease the cognitive decline that is associated with aging. So this cognitive decline happens naturally. There's really nothing that you can do to stop it, but exercise can really help decrease how much you have that decline. So that decline is actually a big factor in contributing to the development of Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. Both strength and endurance training have been shown to have positive effects on cognitive performance and activities of daily living in patients living with dementia. So again, as little as 1 month of exercise training can improve those activities of daily living in dementia patients. So exercise before helps decrease that decline, and exercise with dementia can really help improve your quality of life and your ability to just do your normal daily activities. As a little kind of lead in to the next slide, exercise has been shown to really decrease inflammation in the brain as well, which can really perpetuate how bad a disease, a dementia or Alzheimer's disease is. So next slide.
Thanks, Aislinn, for the handoff. So next I'm going to be discussing something called C-reactive protein. So what the heck is C-reactive protein, and what does it have to do with exercise? So CRP is essentially a protein that is produced by the liver. Its levels rise whenever you have inflammation in the body. So we've all heard of LDL cholesterol. That's that lousy cholesterol that we want to get rid of in our bodies with exercise, with statin therapy, and with a good diet. Now, the problem with this cholesterol is that it not only coats the walls of our arteries, but it also can damage them over time. And this damage causes inflammation in the body, and the body needs to respond to it. That's where CRP comes in. CRP is essentially a response protein that comes in order to kind of fight off this damage that's happening to the walls. And so CRP is essentially a marker for inflammation, and we don't want CRP to be too high because that's an indication that we likely have a lot of cholesterol in our vascular arteries. And so in terms of the connection with exercise, there was a study in 2004. It was a clinical trial investigating the association with exercise and CRP levels. And they found that over the course of 3 months, 277 cardiac participants were involved in the study, and they found that just regular exercise, I would say about 3 times a week or so, lowered CRP levels on average by about 41%. Now this was after they controlled for weight reduction and they controlled for the statin medications that they were on. And so what's the main takeaway from this? Well, we've talked about a lot of different ways that exercise is beneficial. We've talked about it for dementia, we've talked about it for building muscle, but it's also effective at reducing inflammation. So essentially what it does, it can help to reverse some of the damage that has been caused by LDL cholesterol, which builds up over time. So exercise, in addition to all the other benefits that Aislinn mentioned, it's also great for anti-inflammatory purposes, which is one of the major concerns when it comes to cardiovascular disease, atherosclerosis, and the risk of a heart attack.
Thank you for showing that, and thank you also for that little message there. It was after 8 o'clock, and I was still eating, so I'm stopping eating, and see, I have my friends to help me to remind me. So the power of support. So CRP. It turns out that inflammation causes infection, and also CRP is associated with atherosclerosis. So one of the things that losing weight lowers CRP. I was just increasing CRP by eating, so by eating less and losing weight. And look at that, statins lower C-reactive protein. There's now a whole body of literature that's talking about that we can use certain medications. Colchicine is an example that can lower CRP. So if your CRP is over 2, your risk of heart disease it goes up, and if you're overweight with that big belly there, your CRP is likely elevated as well. So that's independent, and you can see that exercise makes a huge difference about this. So thank you for sharing that. So we're going to talk about more of inflammation, but one way to decrease inflammation is just to be active. Losing weight, avoiding processed foods, and those who are plant-based eaters, for instance, have less inflammation too as well. And one of the things that statins do lower CRP as well. You can see there's multiple ways of doing this. But I didn't realize you can lower it by 41% by exercise. That's a huge amount. That's much more than what you get from cholesterol pills.
So, Doctor, I thought you could speak to some of these pictures.
Yeah, so you can mention over here, so you can see, we talk about inflammation, you can see that on the top right is that we can image the heart, we can do a coronary angiogram, and we can image it with MR's composition ultrasound. And you know what? Instead of measuring how bad your blockages are, why don't you just decrease your inflammation? Why don't you just decrease your risk factors? Because on the bottom you see is a vulnerable plaque. Unfortunately, these are examples of people who passed away, and you can see a vulnerable plaque basically has a thin fibrous cap, lots of inflammation, and you just mentioned that you can lower your inflammation in your vessels by exercise. On the right, the plaque explodes. It's a rupture of a vessel, and you feel that red is a big clot and hemorrhage in that vessel, and that person, unfortunately, the vessel's closed off, and that's a heart attack called an ST elevation infarction. If you can't get to the hospital very quickly, time is muscle, and you can likely die from a fatal rhythm problem. And it's predicting a plaque rupture. We can't do that. So on the top, we show this composition of plaque. But you know what? I know how to make myself live longer. I know how by exercise, by lowering C-reactive protein, lowering inflammation, I can do that. So let's spend more time working on that, and we'll work on that. So just please think about, instead of diagnosing your heart disease, let's just prevent it a little bit more. And here's a consequence, and exercise lowers CRP by just under half. There you go. And this is what also important. So we know the LDL cholesterol. That I'm not sure what some of these bad guys are. So LDL cholesterol is a bad cholesterol. There's no such thing as a good LDL molecule. In the past we had this magical number of LDL2. Well, you know what? I want my LDL close to zero. On your right is something called remnant particles, or rich in triglycerides. And we just learned that exercise and weight reduction can actually lower that. In the middle is LP little a. LP little a is that you can't lower that by exercise. You can't lower it by diet. It's a genetic factor, and 20% of everybody in Canada may have a high LP little a. I have a very high LP little a, over 600 on the top 1 to 2 percentile. My son also has inherited this as well, and the only way to lower that is to use medications to lower that. And right now there's no specific drug that really lowers that really effectively. PCSK9s lower it by about 30%. There are new monoclonal antibodies in clinical research that are underway right now, but LP-A, what you do is lower the LDL cholesterol. So my son, at the age of 20 years of age, is going to go on a cholesterol medication because he's in the top 1 to 2 percentile for this genetic marker, and that's something that's new information. So yes, you can lower your LDL cholesterol with diet and exercise, but you lower it a lot by statin therapy. Those remnant particles on the far right, those are bad guys as well, and those can be lowered with good lifestyle changes in combination with weight reduction and maybe medications as well. So these are some of these particles that we need to work on, and in addition to C-reactive protein. Thank you for showing that slide. And this just talks about atherosclerosis and inflammation. So you think CRP is easy to understand. These are just, from T cells and macrophages and different immune cells right now. This is what an atherosclerotic plaque composition looks like. And on the top there you see what a muscle cell can look like. We can actually attack the muscle cell to try to work on making your heart stronger by actually crossing bridges, for instance. We use medications in the past to increase intracellular calcium try to make the pump better in congestive heart failure. And now and you can see that inflammation has a crucial role in atherosclerosis. It turns out that the standard fish oil preparations that we use don't work. Looks like maybe pure EPA might work. So we'll just complicate, but you know what? Just get out there and exercise for 30 to 60 minutes most days, and that would do a lot of good. And we'll work out those little details right now. We have still lots to learn. This is brand new from the American Heart Rhythm Association, so that's my job to sort this out. I'm still confused. Inflammation is also involved in infection. Turns out in COVID, there's a first wave where your body's trying to fight, then you have an overreactive inflammatory phase that takes place, and that's what unfortunately tends to have people pass away from. And so how to block that, how to work in this area. So, you don't need to be a doctor, but you don't need to be a doctor to exercise and keep moving forwards about this. So this is high-powered technology that's best treated with 30 to 60 minutes of exercise most days. So Aislinn, you're muted, I think.
I definitely was muted. Okay, perfect. So as I was saying before, exercise can really help improve your mental well-being. So exercise has been proven to improve depressive symptoms in clinical and non-clinical populations. So that means if you have a diagnosis of depression, exercise can really help you. And if you don't have a clinical diagnosis of depression, exercise can really help you. So this improvement in depressive symptoms was seen across all populations, regardless of their age, their gender, and the severity of their depression. The only thing that really modulated the improvement was that longer training protocols elicited larger benefits in improving depressive symptoms. So studies on anxiety are also ongoing right now. They're less frequent and less generalizable because anxiety has a lot of clinical diversity. So the way that it presents itself is very different in different people. Exercise has been shown to have anxiolytic benefits in healthy populations, and in populations with clinical anxiety disorders, its positive benefit is about equivalent to relaxation training, which is often implemented as a therapeutic technique for patients with anxiety. Exercise will also help to modulate your stress response. So, as Dia sort of talked about earlier, when you're exposed to something stressful, your body will respond by releasing a hormone called cortisol. And cortisol will cause that stress response in your body by doing things like increasing your heart rate and increasing your blood flow to muscles. Essentially, it were to serve the purpose of if you got confronted by a bear in the woods, cortisol is going to help you escape that bear. So when you exercise, your body also releases cortisol. But people who chronically exercise actually have lower baseline cortisol levels and will recover much faster from that increase in cortisol caused by stress. So it's believed that when that cortisol peak happens with exercise, it basically trains your body to be able to quickly recover from that burst of cortisol that's released. And then that translates over when you're exposed to something that's stressful. Your body will be able to recover from that release of cortisol much faster, leading you to have kind of less stressful feelings in your body when you are stressed. Next slide, please.
Alright, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about exercise testing, and this is something Dr. Curnew has really wanted to implement with his patients. Doing an exercise test once every 6 months or even less, just to see and track your progress. So an exercise test that's used widely in research is the 6-minute walk test. So it's used for research regarding cardiovascular diseases, neuromuscular diseases, is used pretty much everywhere. So basically the test is how far you can walk in 6 minutes. So measuring things like distance or how many steps you take. If you want some tips to how to do this, you can use speedometers. You have a smartphone like an iPhone, there should be a built-in speedometer, or you can download apps such as Nike Run Club, which can track your distance, your pace, as well the time it took to reach that distance. And these can be really helpful in getting that quantitative data so you can track your progress. Next slide, please.
So someone was asking is that how can I figure out how many METs and how to look at this right now? So I want everybody to actually do a 6-minute walk test every month and just see how many what distances, how many steps you can do. You can do it in different ways. Now, whether or not you need a stress test or not, we can make that decision for yourself, and it's a very much individual decision process. So someone who has heart disease, angina, will probably do a stress test, and we can decide when the frequency afterwards. It just tells you how much heart tissue is risk. But you can actually do a 6-minute walk test every month and record that, and we'll actually translate that into a units of METs right now. So how far you can walk, and now this Nike Runners app and stuff like that. Do you have to have a Nike product to use it, or how does that work? How do you get that to work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's completely free. You don't even have to own Nike shoes or any Nike products. So just download in your app store. So if you have an iPhone, it'd be the Apple App Store. If you have an Android, it'd be the Google Play Store. Just type in Nike Run Club, and you'll find that app. And it's very helpful. I've used it in the past for my runs, and it tracks a lot of useful information that you can. And they also can chart that information as well. So instead of you having to put all of these results together, the app can do it by itself, so you can see your progress if you're gone up over the course of a few months. So it's very useful.
I think some way to monitor your progress is always a good thing, and so one of my goals is every year or twice a year in the past we do the CN Tower climb, and I get a little bit slower most years, and I keep saying I'm going to train more, train harder. What I'm going to do is download this Nike app, and I'm going to actually measure some fitness, and I encourage everybody to measure their fitness every month or so, and I know we're going to be starting our fitness and support club for motivation in February. So I encourage everybody for February the 3rd or the 5th. What day was that again? It was a Wednesday in February. But every Wednesday we'll meet with those starting in February about looking at some fitness, and we'll have some fun about this, and maybe we'll decide we'll have the Million Step Club. We'll try different things, and Stuart got me to not eat my last tangerine for the night, so through eating for the night, if all goes well, I'll just have water left, and let's see if I can do that. And so keep your eyes on me. If I'm eating, just yell at me, okay? So I appreciate that.
Alright, so there are some other tests you can do as well in addition to the 6-minute walk test. There's a test called the 400-meter walk test. So basically, how long does it take to walk 400 meters? You can also adapt it to make it a little bit easier. You can time how long it takes you to walk down the block, walk a lap around a track of some sort. Walk 4 laps around your backyard. These are things you can keep track of, and you can chart your improvement over time. And like Dr. Curnew said, having something visual can really help with motivation. And as well, just to reiterate something you've probably heard a million times, always keep track of your weight and blood pressure. So having a scale and blood pressure machine at home, this is very important for cardiovascular health, for general health, for fitness. So always get a scale, get a blood pressure machine, and track that in addition to how long you're able to exercise as well. And also look for some subtle changes. So these changes you might not have to record. So things like you can be able to walk a little bit farther. Maybe you can walk a block more today than you could yesterday. You could walk 20 minutes more than you could maybe 3 months ago. So these changes, they add up, and it's good to make note of them as they can really help with motivation. And not only increases in your exercise fitness, but also increases in mood as well. That's a big thing that I've noticed after exercise. My mood generally tends to be a lot better. There's a time, I can tell during the winter break, there was a time where I woke up super irritated, wrong side of the bed, don't know why, I was super snappy. I got out, shoveled the snow, and honestly, it was like I woke up a completely different person. I don't know what happened. But yeah, exercise can really help boost your mood. So keep track of that, and these things can add up and really help with motivation. Next slide.
So exactly, we want to kind of go on that roll that Jerry was talking about and talking about all the ways that you can exercise, because now we know some of its benefits. So we're aware that it's very difficult to exercise right now. Gyms are hard to access and may not be a safe option at all. So we want to offer you a form of exercise that might even be more effective than those fancy weights at the gym. And it's this giant rubber band, and it's going to be the best investment in a rubber band that you could make. So it's something called a resistance band. Elastic resistance, as Aislinn touched upon with sarcopenia, it offers several benefits that outweigh, pun intended, the benefits of free weights. So there was one study that was performed at Truman State University in Missouri that found that athletes who included elastic resistance bench press training in their regimens had a significantly greater increase in their bench press strength and power compared to those who only used free weight training. Unlike free weights, elastic band training doesn't actually rely on gravity to provide resistance. This increases its potential for use in any functional movement patterns that mimic everyday or sport-specific activities. Because free weights rely on gravity, they only provide resistance in a vertical plane, the direction of gravity. However, elastic resistance can provide movement and resistance in all types of planes, and you are relying only on the stretch of the band as your form of resistance. Another benefit is that it provides continuous tension on the muscles that are being trained. This can actually be more productive because when you're using weights, people will tend to use momentum to help lift more weight. But the elastic material of the band will only allow you to continue a movement in an exercises using those muscle fibers. So you're getting more bang for your buck. There was another study in 2011 that reported that when subjects used bands in addition to free weights, they increased their bench press strength by an average of 22 pounds. However, when they just used free weights without bands, they increased their bench press strength by an average of 17 pounds. So adding on those resistance bands actually increased their strength by 5 pounds. And that's a difference of 30%, which is huge. So if you want to train as effectively as possible, use resistance bands. There are also a bunch of benefits that we've listed on the slide, and these include functional strength, injury prevention, greater gains in muscular power and explosiveness, and convenience of use, especially at home or when you're traveling. You can find them on Amazon. They're relatively cheap. I know I got a bunch of different strengths, and they only cost me around $17. I think I got 6 in total. So they're a really great investment. And on the following slides, we're going to show you some clips on how to use them. Oh, I don't think they showed up. But you also can check on YouTube. There are clips on YouTube, and you can use resistance bands when you are sitting down, when you are on a chair. There's ones on the side of the slide. There's ones with little handles, so you can just place them underneath your feet, and you can lift them up. And there's also ones that I have here. You can use them around your ankles, around your thighs, even here, and you can do motions like that. And there are several options. So if you have a little bit of trouble balancing and walking, you can just do exercises on your chair, maybe even while you're sitting down in bed. If you want to get in some extra reps while you're at the dinner table, you're also free to use them wherever you please.
Just going to reload the presentation, Dia, because they might come in, and if not, then we'll just move on to the next section.
Thanks so much. Sorry about that. I'm not sure why.
You know, it's interesting that these elastic bands are really become popular. So Aislinn said you just get some cans of peas and stuff and move them around. But I'm really fascinated by these bands. So I have to sort of get some and start using them. And maybe when we start in February, we'll just do a little demonstration about that and get that working for us. And I think it's, I learned that resistance training is very, very, very important. So that's an important concept over there. So, and like always, technology doesn't always work, but voila, how do you fix technology? Just ask a young person. So we'll see if this loads up. And I'd be curious to know if anybody else is using elastic bands. It's something that I haven't really thought about, but something I'm going to take away. The mistake I see with many people is that they're just going to rely on one modality to keep themselves healthy. So I exercise or I eat well, therefore I'll be okay. You're not going to be okay for most of the time. Is that if you have a high LP little a, that's a genetic marker, you need to lower that. If your blood pressure is high, you have diabetes, you're in trouble, and that your LDL cholesterol for most people won't be good enough for diet by itself. So you want to do all these pillars. So diet, well-being, exercise, as well as controlling all your risk factors. Let's see if this works here, Stuart.
Okay.
We'll do side leg raises. With the side leg raises, guys, you need to keep your shoulders back, core nice and tight. You just gently take one leg out. So we're going to do 8. This is 3. We're halfway. Keep your back up nice and straight, guys. Squeeze that as high as you can. 2.
Yeah, so it was a little short clip. So this was an example of how you can use them around your ankles for leg strength. And in the next video, there's one where you can use them
We'll do side.
while you're sitting down. Sorry, Stuart, next slide. Where you're sitting down on a chair and you can use them for your arm strength as well.
Bands, you're going to step on the band, make sure it's in the center of your foot. That's 1 minute gone already. We're going to wrap the band one time. I want to get the tension. We're going to curl up for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
So there we go. Those were 2 forms of the exercise that you can implement, and there's so many videos on YouTube on how to use these in your daily life.
So, Dia, do you use exercise bands yourself?
Yes, I do. So we have a couple of free weights at home, but I find that these are the most convenient. I can adjust my weight according to what muscle group I'm using. So I like these personally. And also what I do is sometimes when I'm on the bike, and if I want to exercise my arms while I'm biking on the stationary bike, I just put on some resistance bands and I do some arm exercises. So you're doing 2 for 1. So I like it.
Thanks so much. Well, that was wonderful. Now we have 2 physician colleagues that are also patients as well as friends and advisors, and so Dr. Phil and Dr. Joanna are going to give a perspective from their way of life and how exercise and activity fits into their life and their patients' lives as well. So thank you, Joanna and Philip, for coming tonight. What would you like to tell us?
Well, I'm
Can
happy.
you hear us?
Hi,
You guys
can
are
you-
good?
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you very much to all the students and the staff who have put so much thought into this wonderful evening. And I think that they've given us a lot of knowledge to work with and things that we can improve for ourselves. I think that what I wanted to speak to was a little bit more of a practical situation because I'm a family doctor, but I do long-term care. And you've been hearing a lot in the newspapers about long-term care, but I want to just concentrate on the population that ends up in long-term care. It's a very expensive way of looking after the patients, and it probably isn't the best way. So I don't think there's too many people, there's not too many patients in long-term care that choose to be there, but because of circumstances, that's why they are there. So if we can do whatever we can do to keep patients living in their own home or with their families and not in long-term care, I think that we are doing a lot of benefit, especially to the seniors, because it tends to be senior related. However, My husband does have younger patients that are in some of his nursing home facilities. So if we think about why do patients end up in long-term care? Now, for you young people, it's not something you're going to think about for many decades, but possibly you have parents or grandparents that may be getting to the point where it may become a reality. So there's many reasons why patients end up in long-term care, but two of the biggest reasons are falls. If patients have a fall, a significant fall can break one of their larger joints, especially their hips or their shoulders. If you suffer a hip fracture, the chances of getting back to your pre-fall life are very slim. And there's a high chance that you're going to lose your independence. So a lot of the patients that I admit to the long-term care are there because they fractured their hip. So anything we can do to prevent that is very, very important. Now, the other reason that I see patients admitted to a nursing home is because of cognitive decline. So like their dementia, or they've had a bad stroke and it's left them with disabilities. It also will leave them sometimes with behaviors that family members or spouses can't handle. So that's why they end up coming to the nursing home. But like I say, there's a myriad of reasons why patients end up in the nursing home. But if I take the two big ones, it's going to be falls causing fractures and cognitive thinking impairments. So, what can we do to prevent falls? And the way I'd like to break it down into 3 areas. So the first one is education. And I think it's very important that we get this knowledge out to the public that there are things we can do to prevent falls. And a lot of the young people have touched on it tonight. So we had the talk about the osteopenia. We had the talk about the sarcopenia. We had the talk about the osteoporosis. And we had somebody there that's studying kinesiology. And I think you people have hit the nail on the head. Okay, so we have to educate people to tell them. There's a lot of information and activities through public health agencies, such as swimming for seniors in a lot of the pools. Now, we can't do it right now to any great extent because of COVID, but there's osteoporosis classes that are offered through different facilities. I know they do it a lot at the Baycrest Center in Toronto for seniors, but they have it at the Boys and Girls Club in Niagara Falls. They have their pools open for osteoporosis prevention and pool exercises so that it's less stress on the joints and this type of thing. There's teaching so that you're taught, like, take your vitamin D, eat your foods with calcium. And so we have to promote that. It's almost a public health campaign we should be starting for people to exercise, understand what can you do for falls prevention. Now, another way of looking at this is through safety. So safety is so that you can prevent falls or you can prevent injury. Now, I did send Jerry a couple of pictures of photos. I don't know if Jerry got them on an email or if he has them available, but this would be the time for him to show them. So, for instance, for safety, there's environmental issues. So we've all been to like an older person's home and they have all this kind of clutter stuff all over the place. So we have to declutter things so that the patients aren't tripping or falling on like their newspapers and magazines that are on the floors, or their little area mats and carpets that they might trip or fall over. We have to make sure that they know, like, don't let water spill on the floor, because you'd be surprised how many people slip on water and fall and break something. We don't want older people going out if there's just been snow or ice. We should have the young people going around and trying to shovel their walks or their driveways, or putting salt down or whatever. Another problem is, as far as safety goes, is this was a terrible one about 10 years ago. I had several patients that this happened. Is they have a comforter, and the comforter is a beautiful comforter on top of the bed, but the corners of the comforter are on the floor, and then the patient comes at night in bare feet, and their toes get caught up in the comforter, and they fall and they break a bone. Even if they don't break their hip, they can break a vertebrae in their back, and that will lay them up for 6 weeks. If they're laid up and not moving around for 6 weeks, that's when you're going to get the osteoporosis and the sarcopenia. And I forget the number, but it's something like every 1 day in bed, a patient loses something like 10% of their muscle strength and muscle mass. So putting a patient to bed in their home or in the hospital is very detrimental. Now, also with safety, we have to think about equipment. So I did send one of these pictures about equipment, and it was showing that we need walking aids such as canes, walkers, 4-prong canes, whatever, but we need them in proper working condition, and we need the sizing to be correct. So sometimes at the nursing home, especially with walkers, we need to get occupational therapists to help us exactly, especially because oftentimes these patients will have had a stroke, so they can only use some equipment with one good arm, and the other half an arm has half the strength and isn't functioning so well. But the picture I sent showed that the cane was adjustable to the proper height, and the cane had a rubber tip, a non-slip rubber tip on the end. So these are just simple things, but we want to make sure that these aids are in good condition. When I walk around the nursing home, you wouldn't believe how many walkers, only one of the 2 brakes works on the walker. That's a very common problem, or none of the brakes work on the walker. So that's very difficult, because the walker gets away from the patient and gets pushed out, and the patients go smack right down and land on their face. That's terrible. Now, another one, too, is like footwear. So this is very, very practical. The students gave the academic background of this, but in my work, sometimes you just have to be practical. So patients sometimes have terrible footwear. So I have a nice pair of running shoes, and I sent a picture of them in to show that the running shoe has a solid sole that gives you support, and the shoes lace up to give you support. Sometimes in the nursing home, the patients will come in with flip-flops. Now, there's no support in those flip-flops at all, and they're forever going over on their ankles. I've got patients that come in and say they haven't worn shoes in 10 years, and they're not going to buy a pair of shoes now, and they come in hand-knit slippers. So those hand-knit slippers, they're really slippery. And now, generally, when you go to the hospital, all hospital patients are issued with a special pair of socks that's got like little rubber dots on the bottom, so that they're supposed to be slip-proof. So we have to think about that. I had another patient, and the sole of his running shoe, I guess the glue came off, and so somebody just ripped the outer sole off so that now you've got one shoe that's probably about a centimeter higher than the other shoe because the other shoe is now missing a sole, so there's no support or anything there. Plus now you're on shoes that are different heights, so that's a problem. So there's many things that we can do as far as safety. Now the other thing is activities. So this is really interesting, and this is getting to the crux of the matter today, which is all about exercise. So I think that we should look at exercise as something that is going to enable us to stay in our home environment for as long as possible. So with our exercise, in my perspective, there's 3 areas that we need to work on. So that is going to be balance, so balance exercises. It's going to be strengthening exercises. Both of those you briefly touched upon. But the third one is called proprioception. And just to remind you, proprioception is the ability to sense where your limb or your foot is, possibly by just lightly touching the floor or just knowing where it is. But it's very important to have a sense of proprioception. So if I have diabetes and I can't feel with the bottom of my foot, then I can't tell, is my foot firmly on the ground or barely touching the ground or not touching the ground? That's proprioception, and proprioception is very important. For me, I can very easily touch my nose like this. But if you've got problems with your cerebellum, you ask the patient to touch their nose and they're going out like this. So you have to be able to understand where your body parts are. So that's proprioception, and it's very important. So what we can do is we can do foot and ankle exercises especially, because that will help with proprioception. If you understand, how to strengthen your ankle and your feet, then when you're walking, when your gait comes into play, you have better proprioception. So that's very, very important, because these patients are often fragile and they don't have the strengths in the rest of their body in case their feet are misaligned or whatever, to catch themselves before they fall.
We want to stay out of long-term care.
Yeah.
For as long as possible.
Now, other types of exercises that help with proprioception are just standing, because if you just stand, you get the feeling of where your weight is on your feet, and that's really important. And you get the feeling of the weight coming right from your head, right down through your trunk, and right into your feet. So that's very important. Usually proprioception exercises, we try to do them with the patient standing. So we'll stand them up and put the weight on the one foot, and then with the other foot and leg, they, on the floor, draw a letter. So they'll stand up, put the weight on the left foot, and when they're ready, they take the right foot and they make like a circle O, or they'll make a P. That's a good one to do, like a straight line and a bump on the other side. So that way, they're learning to shift their little bit, weight a little bit with their their sense of a lightness to move your foot to make a letter, but a heaviness on the other leg to support the weight. So that's a very important type of exercise. You can also do that with lunges. So you're teaching the patients to lunge forward if they can, to get the weight forward, to understand where the weight is. Then also, for the exercise, it's important to do some bed exercises. So that's how you keep your trunk strong. So the patients lay down and they can do a bridge. So like you bend your knees at 90 degrees, you lay on your back, and you just lift your body off the bed and hold it for a second or two. So those bridges are very important. And also, when you're laying in bed...
Are you talking about like elderly
I'm talking about elderly people, but I mean anybody. If you go to yoga class, they usually have you doing some types of bridges and things like that too. The thing about bad exercises, if you can do them early in the morning, that's very good for patients because often the patients have low blood pressure in the morning. So if you get them to do their exercises in the bed, they're not standing up quickly and then having their blood pressure drop and then they kind of almost pass out or faint. That's bad. That's not good.
And on bad weather days, it's something they can do.
On bad weather days, if you can't get out, do your bad exercises. And also we teach them to roll, like to lay on their left shoulder and whatnot, and then just log roll their body over onto the right side, because that's important for like their truncal exercises and their core exercises. And then also I wanted to talk about the turning in the bed. Okay.
To think about it is you can see that we have a whole spectrum of activities from people that are very physically fit to those that are not. We're going to do a whole session on preventing falls and things of that nature. So what I really love about this is that we start off saying that only 16% of Canadians are exercising. As we get older in life, it could be unsafe to exercise if we're not doing it properly and not using the right devices. And I really love all those practical points there. I learned about band exercises. And also is that both you are physicians, and I've been bike riding with you, and you look after yourselves with activity. I'd like to end on saying, what do you guys do for exercise? How do you find that exercise has made a difference in your lives?
Yeah, thanks for indulging me, but that's my promotion for exercise, even the extremely elderly people.
But what we do is...
But for us, Philip will tell you what we do.
Well, when we get up in the morning, we try to find out we try to do a power walk every day. And we're blessed that we're living out here in the country on the shores of Lake Erie in Port Colborne, and we have a route that we'll have to modify it with snow, but when there's not snow, we walk on a country road, and then there's a bike path that we power walk on, and it's a 5K walk, and we're trying to beat our clock from the week before, and we use a smartwatch and our smartphone to get our time. So we're trying to beat the time that we did on average the week before. And we get a sweat on cold days, so we have to adjust our clothing. We're looking at the temperature and adjust our clothing to what we're going to do. It's cold at first, but as we get warmed up, it's okay. We have to see which way the wind's coming and all this, and the right footwear. And what gets us motivated, a lot of the things that our presenters presented is how we can't do the things we can do. I got my skiing shirt on here. You can see, you can see that we can't do the things we normally do. Normally, Joanne and I are big skiers, and down in Ellicottville we have a little townhouse, and we walk up and down the hills there, and we can power walk there. Well, we can't do that this year, so we're a bit worried about the winter. So we've plan every day. We'll know we have to do some work because we're semi-retired, but then we say we got to put at least an hour into that fitness. And from this talk, I can see I think I need to do more isotonic or with the bands, and we have them. My wife uses them. I have to start using them. I can see that's important. I hope that's enough, but we do about at least an hour a day of this power walk, which gets us about how many steps? Still about 7,000.
Yeah, the first.
Yeah, and then if the weather's good, and
we always get up past 10,000.
Yeah, we always get up past 10,000 because then we'll do like a shorter walk, sometimes on the beach or to our friend's place along the fire lane. And I think it's good to we're role models for our friends and our family. My children now, they have this. The younger people they've invested in this program called
Peloton bike.
Peloton bikes. Have you the students heard of that Peloton? And it's they sell this equipment, and then you get online and you can compete against each other. So my daughter can compete with her sister-in-law in Canmore, Alberta, and they ride together and they have classes, and it's to me it seems fairly expensive. The bike was $2,500, and the program's like $75 a month. But then you get classes and fitness, and you compete against each other. I don't think Joanna and I in our decades we need that. We cycle in the summer and we do golf. We push our carts. No, that season's over. We have to be careful that we fell the other day when it snowed on the road. So we have to. I sort of dragged Joanna down. So we got to be careful. Get our cleats. I didn't wear my cleats. Joanna had her cleats on. I was too stubborn to put mine on. And so we got to keep it safe. And while the Ys are closed and the gyms are closed.
I think another thing is we motivate each other. I think the motivation is very important because, you know, you get started, but, you know, you need something to motivate you to keep going. Also, Philip has a heart condition, so the motivation is that he keeps his heart condition under control with exercise and diet.
And we work with chronic disease, people that didn't take care of themselves. And we see much younger people than us in these nursing homes. They're, mainly older people, but seen younger ones too that didn't take care of themselves. We're dealing with chronic disease. We got friends with such bad arthritis they can't exercise. And part of that is due to his weight. And they've got the genetics to live long, but he can't golf anymore. He can't walk very far because he's got spinal stenosis. So we see these chronic diseases. That motivates us to keep doing whatever we can to stay healthy. We got a lot to look forward to in life. We're building a new house here on the lake. We got another grandchild on the way, and 6 we have, and we love them to bits, and we want to continue to enjoy them.
Also, we promote the young people to go outdoors, and I know that I think there's a lot of literature out now that shows that children that go outdoors learn better. But anyway, we promote like young families and younger people around here to go out.
We're forced to right now.
Yeah, go out and enjoy the outdoors, and I think everybody's doing it because my understanding is that you can't buy a pair of snowshoes because they've all been bought up with people trying to get outside.
Cross-country skis you can't buy.
They've all been bought out. So I think it's a trend. People are starting to go outdoors and exercise.
And I think our children are great exercisers because Joanna and I, we always did exercise, but we're more methodical about it, especially with this condition that I have. We're taking it more, and we have more time too. We should have made more time when we were younger, but we make the time for it. It's like brushing your teeth or combing your. Some people can comb their hair, and it's part of hygiene, health hygiene.
Do your exercise.
Just taking your medicine. Look at that. I was astounded how 10 Mets can reduce. What was that, Greg? 40%.
So every 1 Met increase in activity, heart disease mortality can fall 10 to 20%. That's based on observational data, so not the highest quality information. But I think you guys have pointed out. How old are you, first of all, if you want to share that?
On January the 10th, I'll be 70. And Joanna?
68.
And Joanna 68. Yeah. And
so, and these young people are still young, and why they're young is they watch what they eat, they work together, they're exercising. I met Philip a number of years ago. He has angina, and we have to do stress tests just to make sure that his angina is stable, and we do that when it's appropriate. Sometimes the chest pains fluctuate. We can look at that. So but So to me, this just summarizes a huge body of information here. So what we learned today is that most of us don't exercise as much as we should. Those that do reap benefits from, mental health to better learning ability, to better bone health, better muscle mass, better minds. And so it's one of those pillars that, is that come up with your exercise prescription, is that, so write down through your SMART goals what you're going to do. If we can help, we'd love to help and share our stories and our events. Are we perfect? No, but we can get better every day. So I just want to thank everybody for participating. Jerry and his team from Aislinn to Dia, thank you so much. I'm going to get some of those resistant bands too. And we have an exercise bike. We have an old-fashioned one, and I know the Peloton ones are popular for some people, and it's a way of being social, keeping competition maybe for you. For me, is having my own bike and chatting with people as I'm going biking is great. And I thank everybody for their support. Any final thoughts from anyone?
Well, keep up the good work, Greg, and your team, and thank you for motivating us to keep fit, and hope you can keep this up. And
thanks for the great presenters
and
tonight.
The presenters, they did a fantastic job. Really good information. Yeah.
Stuart showed us that you can lower CRP almost by half by exercise. Jerry reminds me that we need to keep track of our progress and keep measuring either a 6-minute walk test or how many steps you can do in 400 meters. One of the things that I keep track is how fast I can go up the CN Tower, and also how long I can keep doing it for. I just want to thank everybody for participating, and fill out your SMART goals. And so we'd love to give out another book and get somebody else involved, and start joining us in February on Wednesdays at 7 o'clock. We're going to exercise together. We're going to try some bands. Maybe on our inaugural session, we'll give a demonstration of how to use bands. I'm going to be out there doing something as well. So, Stuart, I'll give you the last word.
Well, I wanted to thank everyone really for putting together a fantastic presentation. I think starting 2021 off on the right footing is important. So I really love the theme that we've gone with about ways to improve yourself and setting goals and trying to achieve them. I like how today we talked about the science behind it, but having this discussion right here as well was really great to hear the practical component of it. And my always takeaway whenever it comes with exercise and whenever it comes with staying motivated is trying to do it in groups or trying to get other people involved in my goals. So if I set a goal, I like to share it with other people so that they can kind of hold me accountable. I know Dr. Curnew just made a joke because he said he wanted to stop nighttime eating, and I caught him eating a little something on our webinar, so I texted him and told him to cut it out. And I like having people on the same, on my team as well, who are kind of looking out for me. So that's the idea with the Google Forms that we shared. We like to be involved and up to date on how you are setting your goals and what you're doing to try and achieve them. And if there's anything we can do to try and help, we would love to be able to. So we thank you for sitting with us and spending your Friday, January 1st, first day of 2021 with us. And if anyone else has any other final thoughts, they can wrap it up. But for me, I just wanted to thank everyone again for putting in the time and effort to deliver another fantastic presentation.
Yeah, I just want to take the time to thank Dr. Curnew and Stuart for letting me and my team put on the talk today, and Aislinn and Dia. They worked really hard with me as well to do this presentation, and also want to thank Dr. Phil and Dr. Joanna too for agreeing to do the talk and sharing your expertise and your knowledge about exercise and having that patient perspective as well. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, everybody. We're going to learn about other aspects. We start off the new year with diet, now exercise, other pillars, and one of the things is I'm too sore to exercise, and how we're going to overcome that. And if you're afraid of falling, we're going to get John and Phil back and others to how to prevent falls as well, because that's very important to do as well. So, but right now is that I'm going to bid everybody good night. And we'll see you next week. And so I'm just going to stay and chat for a little bit. If you want to join us, you're very welcome to. And thank you for everybody's attention. And I can go back and look at this multiple times. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.